Welcome in, you guys, to another One Piece video. You know exactly what time it is. It is time to just go down to that dirty comment section and see what everybody's talking about. So, without further ado, let's just get right into it. Top comment this time, it says, "I laughed so hard when Sommers had the audacity to think everything was fine and put the blame on his boss. I hope bro was on mute in the telepathy channel." I hope so too, you know. Hey. Gonko-Emu did not respond to Saint Sommers' call this chapter. I wonder why. You know, maybe they are on mute. Maybe they're deafened. Or perhaps Brook is keeping Emu busy. You know, by the time we leave Elbaph, Saint Sommers is like, "Hey, great one. I'm sorry again for that mistake. You know, it was kind of your mistake, but sorry for the mistake." And then Emu's like, "Wait, what? Well, what was going on? I was too busy fighting the Soul King. I couldn't focus." You know, let's hope Saint Sommers comes out of this arc unscathed, you know. Let's save him for the final war, guys. I want to see him in action one last time before we say goodbye. And I am just the teacher, and I want to help my students. Sigh. Nuh-uh. You're a wicked Jotun. That's right. That's right. I can see through the BS. You know, I bet if you take these letters and rearrange them, I bet you could get the real message in there. It's probably something like, "I'm here to kill the students." Sigh, dying on the hill like Morge did when his raid ended in failure. See, the difference between me and Morge, a lot of respect for Morge, but I think he should have doubled down after Wano ended too. You know, maybe he should have just started making theories saying that Wano technically isn't over. You know, Wano, the raid is still going on in our hearts, guys. Remember back when we started Elbaph and a lot of people were saying that it's a dream. Oh, it's the green fairy coming in. It's hallucinations. Guess what? Any chapter now, we're gonna open our eyes and we're gonna be at Onigashima. We never left, boys. We never left. Killingham has been putting in all this work just for his dumbass coworker to start giggling like a ghoul as their plan falls apart. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing too. In the chapter, Killingham literally says, "What is that bastard Sommers doing over there, man?" You know, obviously, the Viz and some other translation sites, they kind of tame it down. You know, they remove the bastard, but yeah, Killingham isn't exactly happy with Saint Sommers' performance. And, you know, going back to this comment, even if Emu just doesn't know what happened here, and he's like, you know, "Oh, like you're throwing me under the bus, oh, whatever. Killingham knows what happened. You know, Killingham is watching from afar, so maybe he snitches on Saint Sommers. You know, maybe Emu is going to execute all of them, and then Killingham's like, "Wait a minute, great one. It was this guy. It was all this guy over here." Humans are basically germ-sized in comparison to the dragon form, and the Tontadas have atom measurements, brother. What is Oda even gonna do for that final war? You know, like when we have Loki coming in, I'm assuming we're gonna have multiple characters on his back riding on him. Will he even know? Like if a Tontada legitimately jumped onto Loki, would he know that they're even there? Like, would he have to like flex his observation hockey to just know who's on his back? Because his size is just too crazy. Like when you're that big, yes, you are strong. Yes, it is a massive advantage, but it can also be a disadvantage because you don't know what the hell's going on back there. Unless, of course, like I said, you just actively use your observation hockey to keep everything in check. Ange is really committing to the bit here. Wow, that's what I said. You know, the fact that she has fooled so many people with this chapter, it's kind of surprising. You know, traders all the time in One Piece, they commit to the bit, and Ange is no different. And we got to keep in mind that just because you are a villain, just because you're a bad guy, I'm sure you still have one or two people you care about. It's obvious. Yeah, look at Doflamingo. Yes, villain, maniac, but he loves his family. Ange could be the same way. Maybe she looks at Joanna and she sees a kindred spirit because Ange is also an orphan, which is why she turned to evil. She had no real parental guidance. She had no motherly figure other than Mother Carmel. Colin has a Emmett toy. It must be based on the drawing on the mural. Yes, I forgot that Emmett was on the mural, and that could be why, you know, he does have that toy. Maybe a toy smith came by to Elbaph, saw that, And they're like, hey, let's make a toy out of Emmett. And if that's the case, I do wonder if there's like a massive emu toy somewhere in Elbaph too. Like they sell every character in the mural. Like, hey, what are you here for today, Tommy? Oh, I want the Hellfire Serpent. Oh, give me that little rat thing over there. Oh, give me Sun God Nika. I think that'd be a lot of fun. But, you know, going back to Egghead Island, it is a little bit silly that when the giant saw Emmett, nobody really recognized it. You would think that one giant there, maybe not Dora and Brogy because they've been gone for the past 100 years, but one of the other giants is like, hey, that robot looks just like the toys they sell in Elbaph. Hey, that robot, it reminds me of the mural and or the Harley text. What's up with that? Maybe I'm giving these giants too much leeway. Maybe the giants can't read. Maybe they can't even make out the drawings on the wall. They look at it and they start screaming because they can't understand. We gotta remember, just because they got giant brains doesn't mean that it always works. Sommers is such a sick man for real. He seems like he's just letting his own plan fall apart just to get a chance to watch some kids die. This one's on Emu for letting Sommers be in charge of shepherding them to safety. Maybe it's because of this right here. You know, Emu didn't really think too hard about it. They were like, wait a minute, we have to shepherd the kids. Sommers' last name is Shepherd. Let's put him on the task. And I do wonder, you know, if we were to put Killingham here instead of Saint Sommers, I bet you that Killingham would be just fine. You know, Killingham would not be drooling at the mouth. He wouldn't just throw his hands up and say, well, it is what it is. I bet Killingham, using his powers, would create like a bridge or a cage or just something, maybe even a ship to just get them out of this pickle. But Saint Sommers is leaning into it. And I really do like how diverse the God Knight mindset is. I really love that. And, you know, this is to be expected, by the way. You know, when Sommers was introduced, he literally said that his favorite form of torture was to watch parents die with their children. So, you know, we should have seen this coming, man. We should have seen this coming. We expect no less from the GOAT. Can't believe Ange really did sacrifice herself for the kids this chapter. I can. I said it in the video, I'll say it again. This is exactly what I was looking for. The main thing with the Ange Angerboda theory is that they had a daughter they cared about. A daughter that belongs in the underworld. That is Joanna. I saw this, and a lot of people winced. They're like, oh my god, the theory's dead. For me, though, I saw the light in the darkness. And aside from that, I think people tend to overestimate me. And you should never do that. Never take my word as the gospel, especially when it comes to these agenda theories, because they're just that. Go back to Barbell being the man marked by flames. Go back to Ange being a traitor. Where did these theories spawn from? Remember, it was when they debuted. These guys had one line on the page, and I said, that's it, I'm selling it. They are X, Y, and Z. These are theories. I've said it before, I'll say it again. These are theories born out of racism. Guys, before there was any meat and potatoes on the Ange theory, I said she was bad just because of the way she looked. Never forget where we came from. Barbell, man marked by flames. Oh, is it because of the Fishman Island Road Poneglyph? Yeah, I think that's pretty plausible. But it's also because he is big. And because he has fire hair in one panel. Yeah, these theories, while I do enjoy them, while I do kind of believe them, they are partially jokes. And we got to take it as that. So when we roll with it, when we double, triple, quadruple down, just remember our origins. You know, I think a lot of people who genuinely just could not see anything other than these theories being true, they've joined into the fray. And I think they're looking at the facts and the logic behind Ange too closely. We do not use logic here. We ban that word, guys. Do you really take Oda as your canon source? I don't. Partially memes there. Sai out here channeling his inner Seraph with those glasses, and so far helped spawn in hordes of nightmare monsters, burn down the library, is super ugly, one of the most evil characters in One Piece. Looks like Oda is setting her up to be killed off later like he did with Saturn. See, that's the thing, right? The theory started with the super ugly portion, and then these other things just kind of happened. I really am like Usopp or Buggy, where just things that are working out in my favor for these theories that started off as jokes, and I'm just like, wait a minute, am I winning? What's happening here? The fact that Loki, as a child, was thrown from the Sun Realm and had no one to catch him, saved the other giant kids and giants, is just masterful writing by Oda. Yeah, and he specifically saved parents, right? Parents that Loki didn't really have. He had King Harold, yes, but King Harold, like 95% of the time, was off on diplomatic missions. So Loki truly had nobody. But here he is, outright saving families. And I cannot wait until Elbaph is over. You know, the fighting is done. Emu, Gunko, Sommers killing him. They all leave the island. Maybe they win, maybe they lose. And then we see Loki meeting up with these families, and they're all thanking him. Imagine how that must feel. You know, Elbaph, up until this point, hates Loki. But Yarul told people the truth. He hopped on the Den Mushi and he told everybody what actually happened the day King Harold died. And now the giants see firsthand that Loki is a good person. Brother, I guarantee you they're going to throw a party for Loki. People are going to be thanking him, you know, sucking his toes. And he's not going to know how to act. He's going to be so shocked by all of this. Like, the giants have legitimately hated Loki pretty much throughout his entire life. And by the time Elbaph is done, they're going to be singing a different tune. And I am looking forward to that day because I want to see how he's going to react to it, man. I feel like he's going to be a tsundere, you know, typical anime fashion. You know, he's going to pretend like he hates it, like, oh no, I'm a destroyer, I'm a bad guy, leave me alone, I'm the sun god. And then you have everybody just saying, oh, Loki, you're our hero, you're our savior. Not the Ange double down. Dude, we don't back down here. You know, even after we leave Elbaph, the theory will continue. I'll talk about it less, of course. You know, I don't want to annoy people with this one, but it lives on in our hearts. You know, like I said, Morge should have done the same thing. Like, imagine you tune into an Elbaph video for Morge, and he says that the raid is failing as we speak. And it's like, whoa, he's cutting deep. He's cutting deep with that one. Now we know why Rox was saying to bring down the WB Warner Brothers. I'm assuming he meant WG. Elbaph, you need that fruit, and you need an ancient giant to eat it. This is ridiculous. Yeah. And, you know, going up to the whole Loki thing, right? The size comparison. Brother, Loki could genuinely fly to Marie's Raw and blast it to Kingdom Come. You know, it's not like Elbaph where Loki has to pick and choose, right? He can't exactly just shoot out fire because he might hurt civilians. But up in the Holy Land, well, okay, wait. No. There are slaves in the Holy Land that maybe Loki doesn't want to kill. So that's why he doesn't just go down and blast them. But genuinely, though, like, if Loki didn't care, he could just go around and just destroy entire islands, wipe castles off the map. Why hasn't he done that? Loki was out on the open seas with giant soldiers from the castle, and yet we didn't hear about him attacking the Holy Land in the span of those 8 years. What happened? When Loki left Elbaph, what happened during that journey? Was he constantly stopped by Shanks? Did the God Knights come after him? Did Loki try and get pushed back? Did he get lost? It's hard to get lost when you're that size though, right? Because you gotta imagine, when you are the size of Loki, you can genuinely fly to the next island in maybe like 30 minutes. You know, give or take. So I do wonder, man, 8 years as Loki out in the open seas. Why have we not heard or seen the impact of him firsthand? I do wonder. Maybe he was just going after Lola. You know, that is a possibility. He was in love with Lola for quite some time. So maybe that's when that happened and he was constantly pursuing her. But I don't know, dude. I do not know. Elbaph really is becoming one of the most emotional arcs in One Piece. Robin meeting Saul, Rayleigh rescuing Shaki, and now Ripley's sacrifice for Colin. All of these are very strong emotional scenes, and Oda is hitting some home runs. Yeah, I enjoy it. You know, I really did like this latest chapter, and it's something I think we can all relate to, right? We were all kids once. So seeing these kids like cry out saying, oh, it's divine punishment, we deserve it for not eating our vegetables. It's like, okay, it's silly, but it makes sense. And then you see the parents and it's like, oh yes, of course. they're falling with their kids. I will admit, it is kind of crazy that, none of the giant parents could stop the arrow. I am still wondering, if they had hockey, would they have been able to stop this predicament? I put Zoro in this example. Zoro, put him in place of the giants. Could he cut Gunko's arrow and save the kids? I like to imagine so. But, none of these giants so far have really displayed armament hockey, sadly enough. This says, Loki survived the fall, yet was cast down by his own mother. A normal giant child would not survive. But they're loved by their family, and the one who caught and saved them was Loki himself. The agenda must prevail. Not a eagle, not a wolf. Loki has a dragon fruit. His self-fruit is most likely the dragon fruit model Nidhogg. It's funny how the real thing makes the Nightmare Nidhogg look like a gecko. Oh, yeah, dude. The size comparisons are crazy. I will say this, though. I see why a lot of people believe that Loki is Nidhogg, but for me, I'm still hung up on that name. Because I think there is a real chance still that Loki's gonna be something unique to the One Piece universe, like Sun God Nika. Of course, I think him and Nidhogg do have a lot of parallels. I think it makes sense that is kind of what Oda's going for. But because we already had Nightmare Nidhogg, I still feel like Loki might be something entirely special. Like, oh, in the Void Century, he actually had this name. Or, ooh, during the First World, alongside the Sun God, this was his name. I think that still might be it. And, going back to Biblo the Owl and even Ratatoskr, both of them have sexual puns alongside their devil fruits and their laughs. So I feel like Loki's going to follow that thematic. Maybe Nidhogg in Japanese fulfills that requirement. You could look at Hog and say, oh, there we go. There's our sexual innuendo. Yeah, I do think Oda's going to get a little bit silly with this one. I always bring it up, but Biblo's fruit means coming. And then the squirrel is literally vagina. So Loki being a dick joke, I think is pretty big. And again, maybe that's just Hog, right? Maybe he erases the Nid, and maybe he's just the Dragon no Mi model Hog. N-Hog. This says, I thought it was the Asian version of the T-1000 for a second. Reminder that Contra was also willing to die with his friends to fulfill his acting role. And is evil. I still don't trust her. She's in a crazy spot, mind you. She is right next to Luffy, Loki, and she's with the rest of the kids, man. I do not trust her. Any minute now, she's gonna pull a Zetsu and just stab them all from behind. This says, very random, but what I'm amazed about is how Roto managed to jump enough to reach Bjorn. It looks like he jumped across a larger part of the hole and made it into the clouds. Yeah. It is an insane jump. And, interestingly enough, we don't actually see Ripley or Goldberg in this chapter. Obviously because they don't have siblings here. But yeah, Roto is going above and beyond with the crazy jump, crazy catch, painful catch. And I've come to really enjoy his character. He started off really weird at the beginning of Elbaph, but I feel like I speak for most people when they say that, Roto has really came around. But yes, with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching this video all the way until the end. I really freaking appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts on these comments, the Ange theory, and everything else down below. We'll be back in the next couple of days with some more poll videos and discussions, so stay tuned for that. And of course, you guys have a great rest of your day. Take care and stay safe, brothers.